When you say the word spa to a motorsport fan, it's not the relaxing and refreshing treatment facilities, swimming pools, fluffy towels and toasty saunas that come to mind. When you say the word spa to a motorsport fan, what appears in the mind is the spine-tingling quick curves, ferociously steep blind crests, the untamed nature of a vehicle soaring past soaked grandstand patrons at over 300 km per hour. But with all the greatness within our spa, there is an equal but opposite negative side. Spa-Francorchamps has given us some of motorsport's greatest memories, but claimed some of our greatest talents far too early. Spa-Francorchamps makes the greatest think twice. It separates which drivers are racing while thinking of their lives and which drivers haven't considered death yet. It continuously reminds innocent fans at home, new fans and old, that motorsport is dangerous. Throughout history, this circuit has killed people and injured many more. This track brings an accomplished feeling to whoever wins here, but it will never fail to remind you that this is a not so relaxing spa. The circuit the Spa-Francorchamps, frequently referred to as Spa, is a 7.004 km motor racing circuit located about 8 km southeast of the town of Spa in Stavelot. It is the current venue of the Formula 1 Belgian Grand Prix, hosting its first Grand Prix in 1925 and has held a Grand Prix every year since 1985, except for 2003 and 2006. Designed in 1920 by Jules de Thiers and Henri Langlais van Oppem, that's probably not how you say those names at all, but so on and so forth. The original course used public roads linking the Belgian towns of Francorchamps, Malmedy and Stavelot. The track's inaugural race was planned for August 1921, but was cancelled when only one driver entered. The first car race was held at the circuit in 1922, and 1924 saw the first running of the now famous 24 Hours of Francorchamps race. The circuit was first used for Grand Prix racing in 1925. The original Spa-Francorchamps circuit was essentially a high-speed course with drivers managing higher average speeds than on any other racetracks. At the time, the Belgians took pride in having a very fast circuit. And to improve average speeds, in 1939 the former slow uphill U-turn at the bottom of the Eau Rouge Creek Valley, called the Ancien Douane, was cut short with a faster sweep straight up the hill, called the Radial. At Eau Rouge, southbound traffic was allowed to use the famous uphill corner, while the opposite downhill traffic had to use the old road and U-turn behind the grandstands, rejoining the racetrack at the bottom of Eau Rouge. The old Spa circuit was unique in that speeds were consistently high, with hardly any let-up at all for 3 to 4 minutes. This made it extraordinarily difficult and a very difficult mental challenge, because most of the corners were taken at more than 290 km per hour or 180 miles an hour, and were not quite flat. Every corner was important as the one before it. If a driver lifted the throttle more than expected, then whole seconds, not tenths, would be lost. The slightest error of any kind carried multiple harsh consequences, but this also worked inversely. Huge advantages could be gained if a driver came out of a corner slightly faster. Like the Le Mans circuit, which also ran on public roads, Spa became notorious for fatal accidents. At the 1960 Belgian Grand Prix, 2 drivers, Chris Bristow and Alan Stacey, were killed within 15 minutes of each other. Sterling Moss had also crashed at the Bournonville corner during practice and was severely injured. In 1969, Sir Jackie Stewart led a safety campaign which would result in the Belgian Grand Prix being boycotted by the F1 drivers due to the extreme danger of Spa. There had been 10 car racing fatalities in total at the track in the 1960s, including 5 in the last 2 years previous. The drivers demanded changes made to Spa, which were not possible on short notice, so the Belgian Grand Prix was dropped that year. Armco barriers were added to the track and sections of it were improved, especially the Stavelot and Hollowell sections. One last race there the following year on the improved track was still not satisfactory enough for the drivers in terms of safety. The drivers averaged over 240 km per hour, 150 mile an hour during the race. For the 1971 race, the track owners and authorities had not brought the track up to date with mandatory safety measures, and the race was cancelled. Formula 1 would not return to Spa until 1983 on the modern track. Since Formula 1 drivers protested against Spa-Francorchamps after the deaths of Chris Bristow and Alan Stacey, no Formula 1 driver has died at Spa-Francorchamps since. When discussing this topic, the corner that comes up in conversation is the Eau Rouge and Raidillon section of circuit. Eau Rouge is a ferocious flick to the left, with Raidillon a steep uphill rise to the right, two of the most famous circuit corners in the world. A challenge for drivers has always been to take Eau Rouge/Raidillon flat out. Touring cars can take the corner at 160 to 180 km per hour or 99 to 112 mile an hour, and Formula 1 cars at over 300 km per hour or 190 mile an hour due to the high downforce. Former world champion Jacques Villeneuve once spoke of the effects of downforce, saying that to get through the corner the drivers have to drive faster because downforce increases the faster a race car goes. Without lifting the throttle through Eau Rouge, a car would be flat out from last source along the Kemmel Straight to Lake Combe, a total distance of 2.015 kilometres or 1.252 miles. A loss of control through this section can often lead to a very heavy shunt, as usually the rear of the car is lost and the resulting impact is often lateral. Several famous racing drivers have crashed while driving through Eau Rouge-Raidillon, including Stefan Bellof in a Porsche sports car, Guy Renard during the 1990 24 Hour of Spa-Francorchamps in a Toyota Corolla GT, and Alex Zanardi in a season-ending crash during a practice session of the 1993 Belgian Grand Prix in a Lotus. Jacques Villeneuve suffered a spectacular crash at the top of Raidillon in qualifying during the 1999 Belgian Grand Prix, which he described as "my best crash ever." His teammate Ricardo Zonta followed Villeneuve by having a similar accident later in practice. In 1992, F1 driver Eric Comas hit the wall heavily on the exit of Raidillon and swallowed his own tongue. Infamously, Ayrton Senna jumped out of his McLaren to save Comas' life. An act of kindness Comas tried to return 2 years later in Imola, after Ayrton Senna's life-ending crash.
Go and see what condition Comas was in. But a very, very big shunt, very high speed shunt. You can see from the marks on the road, the car rotated at least twice. That took a lot of the speed away from the car before it hit the end of the tyre wall, but a big impact for Comas. He was momentarily stunned, knocked out, but by the time the marshals got to him, he was beginning to come around. He was taken out of the car, taken to the medical centre at the circuit. From there he was taken to hospital for the obligatory brain scan.
During the FIA Formula 2 feature race in late August 2019, a serious incident between Antoine Hubert and Juan Manuel Correa occurred shortly after Raidillon on the Kemmel Straight. As the second lap began, Trident driver Giuliano Alesi lost control of his car as he climbed the Raidillon curve due to a puncture he had received earlier, causing his car to spin and hit the left wall of the circuit, tearing off his rear wing and spreading debris onto the track. As another Trident driver, Ralph Boschung, reached the crest of Raidillon, he slowed down and moved towards the runoff area to avoid Alesi's damaged car and the field of debris. Hubert, who was following Boschung closely, had no view of what had happened to Alesi. He moved to the right to avoid Boschung's slowing car, clipping Boschung's right rear tyre with his front wing. Hubert's car crashed into the tyre barrier on the right side of the track at an acute angle and was deflected sideways into the path of Charoux driver Juan Manuel Correa, who struck it on the left side in the driver's seat area. The accident killed Antoine Hubert, aged 22. During the qualifying session of the 2021 W Series Belgian Grand Prix, rain started to fall, affecting the grip. This caused a serious incident that involved 6 cars crashing into each other. Just one day after the W Series crash, Formula 1 held its qualifying session in heavy rain. In the third segment of qualifying, many drivers were complaining that the conditions were not safe and that the session should be delayed or red flagged. Lando Norris then had a snap of oversteer and subsequently corrected, but then aquaplaned into the tyre barrier at Raidillon. His McLaren then spun into the track while crossing the racing line. Norris was taken to hospital for x-rays, but was clear to race the next day. a race which would never start. Another lucky escape. After this crash in the W Series incident just the day before, drivers from all series were calling for changes to the section of the track. Jack Aitken, who a month earlier suffered a broken collarbone and fractured vertebrae after a crash at Raidillon in the 2021 24 Hours of Spa, said everyone had gotten the picture of what needs changing. In the day and age where safety is paramount to many racing organisations and governing bodies like the FIA, these crashes opened a public debate whether the Eau Rouge-Raidillon combination was deemed unsafe. Criticism centred around the nature of the tyre barrier and runoff area of Raidillon, which tended to become out of control as cars bounced back onto the track rather than it collected them. The circuit announced that gravel traps would be placed at La Source, Raidillon, Blanchimont, Les Combes and Stavelot. The runoff areas of some corners, including Raidillon, would be expanded. It was part of an 80 million upgrade to the circuit that would make it able to hold motorcycle races. The upgrade will also include a grandstand at the top of Eau Rouge and Raidillon Hill. The upgrades were completed in March 2022, ready for the FIM Endurance World Championship race due to be held in June. The circuit is also shortened to 6.985 kilometres or 4.340 miles for motorbikes, as Jackie X Corner is bypassed in favour of a shorter section with more runoff from motorcycles. This was not enough. On 1st of July 2023, a multi-car crash in the second race of the 2023 Formula Regional European Championship resulted in the death of Dutch racing driver Delano van 't Hoff. The crash happened at the exit of the Raidillon corner at the beginning of the Kemmel Straight. Delano lost control of his MP Motorsport car at the exit of the Raidillon corner, hitting the barrier on the left side of the track. The car bounced back into the middle of the track, after which Adam Fitzgerald hit the cockpit of the car on driver's right side at full racing speed. Poor visibility due to heavy rain prevented the Irish racing driver from reacting in time to avoid the collision. Other drivers involved in the crash were Joshua Dufek, Emerson Fittipaldi Jr. and Enzo Ciantini. Motorsport is dangerous.